All right. Well, it's ticked over to 12:03 p.m. on my end, so I reckon let's kick it off. Let's make a little start. First things first, as we've just confirmed, we will be recording this session today. In a moment, I'm going to introduce you to a bunch of different people on the screen. Firstly, though, I'm Nicholas Bloom. You can just call me Nick. I'm part of the Ending Loneliness Together Lived Experience Advisory Panel. I do a lot of work broadly in the mental health space, suicide prevention space, but really today's not about me. Today's about what we're here for, which is Neighbour Day. So Ending Loneliness Together, we work really closely with Fraser's Property Australia. They're a valued advisory partner of ours, and we're hosting this webinar in the lead up to Neighbour Day to explore how can we design spaces in our neighbourhood that facilitate the meaningful connections that we really need to get together. Now, just before I introduce you to people on the screen, I do also want to acknowledge country. I'm not sure where you're all beaming in from, but I'm beaming in from Bundjalung country, the Mid-Jumble and Darrinbal people in northern New South Wales. It's a really beautiful, incredible spot, incredible nature that we're surrounded by. And for that, we've got to credit and thank our First Nations folks who've worked with this land for tens of thousands of years to ensure that it is what it is today. And I want to acknowledge the elders who are no longer with us, the elders who are yet to come, and also the elders who are here today and are trying to create a harmonious future for all of us with each other, and acknowledging all of you in the lands that you're signing in from. So why is this discussion relevant for Neighbours Day? Better than hearing from me is to hear from Sam Robinson, who's the National Neighbours Everyday Campaign Manager. She's from Relationships Australia, joining us today. And Sam, I'd love to call on you just to, tell us briefly about this campaign and why is it important?
Thanks, Nick. And hi, everyone. It's great to be here today. I'm coming to you from Biripi country on the lower mid-north coast of New South Wales, another beautiful area. We're delighted to support this important discussion between two of our very neighbourly organisations, Ending Loneliness Together and also Fraser's Property. I'm here to just give you a little bit about Neighbours Every Day, which is Australia's social connection campaign run by us at Relationships Australia. For over 20 years, we've helped people build stronger, more connected communities through small, everyday actions. And our 2025 theme is create, share and grow belonging, because feeling connected is where we live, is what makes a huge difference to our well-being, our resilience and our sense of belonging. This is especially important in apartment and townhouse living, where simple gestures like a hello in the lift, a g'day at the mailboxes, or inviting a neighbour in for a cuppa can turn strangers into community. Our biggest event of the year, as Nick said, is Neighbour Day this Sunday, 30th of March. It's our annual day of action to reach out, connect and celebrate community. Getting involved is easy. Say hello, check in on a neighbour, or maybe even organise a small get-together. Choose your own neighbourly adventure this Neighbour Day. You can visit neighbourseveryday.org for inspiration, ideas and a swag of free resources. Also, you can share your neighbourly action on your social media and use the hashtag Neighbour Day 2025 and also hashtag Grow Belonging. Because when we create belonging, we all thrive, and strong communities start with you. Back to you, Nick.
Thank you for the summary, Sam. I just saw in the chat a couple of messages from people signing in from America, which is pretty amazing. So we've got an international flavor going on. Super cool. Don't know what time it is where you are, but thanks for being there. And Marge has also just popped some links in the chat about Neighbours Every Day as the overall campaign, but also this day of action, which is coming up on Sunday. So you can click through to those, check it out and contribute however you'd like. And this stuff's really important because we can have lots of neighbours and be surrounded by people, but we don't always know them, we don't always engage them. And so we feel like this is a great opportunity to work out, well, how can we actually do that? Because it's so important that we've all got this in our lives. Now, to explore this, got a few very special panelists. You might notice that all three of their names are Michelle, so we're going to navigate that as we go. That's its whole own little sidebar. Firstly is Associate Professor Michelle Lim. She's the CEO of Ending Loneliness Together, and she'll give us some really strong insights on loneliness, social isolation, and also the benefit of community connections, which she specializes in. Michelle Mirglosky is the National Community Development Coordinator at Frasers Property Australia. She's going to give us all sorts of initiatives and design strategies that help to foster connection in these communities. And then, certainly, last but not least, is Michelle Hunter, who's a resident from Frasers Property Australia. And she's here to share her lived experience, her real life experiences of building meaningful connections and the challenges along the way. Important for me to stress that if you've got any questions throughout, you don't need to hold on to it. Pop it into the chat. We're going to have a Q&A at the end. All the panel members can speak to your questions, or if you've got a specific one for one of them, you can direct it to Michelle L, Michelle M, Michelle H. Totally up to you. So fill up the chat with questions as we go, and we'll get to them at the end. But firstly, I've got a couple of questions for you, Michelle L, to kick us off. In terms of that understanding loneliness and social connection piece, at a high level, how could you describe the current state of loneliness in Australia for our participants?
Yeah. So that's a great start, actually, Nick, and thank you for hosting. I'm actually today calling from Combu, Maryland. It's not my usual site, but I guess what's really important in the recent surveys that we've looked at in 2023 and 2024 is that we found that almost 1 in 3 Australians will report problematic levels of loneliness at any given time. But while there's a high prevalence of loneliness because loneliness is really part and parcel of our human nature and part of how we are as a social species. What really worries me more is actually the statistics around persistent loneliness. So we found that about 1 in 3 Australians, once they start to feel lonely, they feel persistently lonely. So we actually catch up with the same group of people 4 months down the line. They are actually still meeting criteria for loneliness. And that is actually really worrying for me. So about 1 in 4 Australians report what we call persistent loneliness. This is also just to be, I guess, to kind of keep people aligned. We're really talking, loneliness is not really the same as social isolation. So social isolation is when you're physically alone. We're talking about when you feel like you have no one to talk to or to turn to, and no one understands you, even if you have people around you. Social isolation and loneliness are bad partners in crime. So we can't ignore social isolation even when we talk about loneliness. But I think making that distinction and understanding how our communities and built environment play into those concepts are really critical today.
And it's an important distinction between being alone and feeling lonely, because we could be alone in nature and feel totally connected, and we could be amongst thousands of people and feel completely lonely and isolated. So I think it's important you just spoke to that. Can you tell us about some of the benefits of creating and maintaining healthy connections with those around us, with our neighbors?
Yeah, so loneliness traditionally is seen as a personal matter, but actually we're really moving away from that. And a lot of the research has shown as well that we really underutilize our relationships with our wider community. So while we're quite good at having connections with family and friends and people we know, what we're really not very good at is actually getting to know our neighbors, our community, and being active there. This is a completely underutilized source of social support that we are not very good at activating. So this is really critical. There's a lot of untapped support that we can get that will benefit the person who feels lonely. And not always, in some studies that we've looked at, for example, when people know their neighbors, they actually report themselves higher sense of well-being, lower stress levels, better mental health. And it's a no-brainer for us to kind of think about how we can actually utilize the people around us, not just the people we know, but also the community and those, I guess, people who you don't know well, but you live amongst, to actually help us buffer the effects of mental ill health, or to help us thrive and flourish as individuals in our community.
And I personally resonate with that. Like, in my history, I've really struggled to connect with people around me. I just haven't known how to do it, or I've felt a bit avoidant of it. So I think it would be really helpful for people to hear about what are simple ways, what are practical ways that we can overcome that loneliness and create those connections with people around us?
Nick, are you asking me to respond to that one now?
Yeah, please. Like, how could we do that in an urban setting? Like, are there simple, practical ways that could help?
I think that there's always this misconception that we have to do big things, that we have to throw events or parties to get to know people. Those are opportunities yet that we can create. But I think it's actually more the incidental social interactions that's really critical. When you pass someone
Mm,
hallway, when you bump into someone when you're kind of collecting your mail, those sorts of things are opportunities that present to us those opportunities to say hi, to get to know people. So for me, I always say go as simple as even the nod. You don't know what to say. Some people really hate small talk, and small talk does have a function. So there's a whole other webinar that we can do. But you know, the hi and the nod or a smile can really go a long way because it gives other people a sense of your mental state, where you're at, whether you're open up to connection, and they then respond accordingly. So we have a responsibility to indicate to other people around us. We function in a social network. We don't just live by ourselves and can thrive by ourselves. We live in a wider community. So if you feel like you want that connection, even though it could be very scary, think about what you can do. So, a smile and nod could be much easier than actually saying hi, introducing yourself.
So I guess just taking little baby steps to move in the right direction. Maybe we actually make eye contact with someone, or we look up from our phone, or we choose to not look away, or we
Absolutely.
ask a question just beyond how are you, just to just start that conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
Nice. Nice. Okay, thanks, Michelle L. Well, I'm going to shift gears towards Michelle M, because I want to start talking about how we create connection in more shared spaces from a design point of view. So, Michelle M, how does Fraser Property Australia, how do they design and then develop spaces that encourage some of those community interactions? Like, how are you helping to support people to do what Michelle L is talking about?
Doing very well there, Nick. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and saying hello here from Whadjuk Noongar land in Perth, Western Australia. So a few time zones going on in this webinar today. In Fraser's Property, we've been around for a long time, 100 years, and we're very passionate about building communities where people can connect. We often talk about the hardware and the software of building communities. So the hardware sits in that design piece. So how are we designing shared spaces? What are the parks we're creating? What do the pathways look like, and where do they start and end? How are we building them so that we're integrating casual interactions? Exactly what Michelle L was talking about. The walkability and connectivity of our communities. We very often are building that mixed use development. So we'll have everything from retail services, townhouses, green title land, which is single homes on a lot. So it's a wide variety of opportunities for people to live in homes and mixed tenure. There's the sustainability, inclusive design part of that story, and also, of course, very smart master planning where we're prioritising social connection. So that might be the way we cluster homes, might be the way we build roads, and how we create village-like precincts with active street fronts, for instance. So, and it's really a design response to whatever that place is. When we talk about the software, Fraser's Property really focuses on the community human side of it. So we're very fortunate that our company stands behind their beliefs, and we do have dedicated community managers. But I would have to say throughout the company, the culture very much is a focus on our communities. So you can talk to people in our sales centres or in our development teams, and they all speak the same language. So we're very keen on how we can deliver for our communities because they're very passionate about it.
Mm, nice. Yeah, it sounds like a really unified offering in terms of how it's designed, because there can be big fences between homes or separate entrances or separate pathways where there's just no real opportunity for that incidental connection and those little things that can add up. sounds like you guys are really designing to create those opportunities so that people don't even have to look for them. They just find them. It's automatic. So that's really great to hear. You've shared more high level. If we get a bit more granular, can you share any specific examples, any stories of successful community building initiatives across apartments, townhouses, or those sorts of developments?
So many. And I have to say, super proud of our team and what we deliver. Very, very, very passionate about, I'm trying to keep my jazz hands down here because very
That's all
passionate
right.
about what we do.
Let them fly. It's all good.
I think I really resonate with what Michelle Lim was saying, was keeping things small, and I think making it doable for everybody. Ultimately, as a developer, we won't be in this space. We want our communities to be self-sustaining and to be able to take this on and continue to build community well into the future. From a developer's perspective, and what we've been able to participate in from the onset of developing a community, I think the rule is what you do needs to respond to who you have and what you have to work with. So if you're talking about townhouses, is it a local pocket park? If you're talking about a big apartment building, do you have a shared kitchen environment where you can run homework clubs, you can have a wine night, you can have a board game night, crazy Mexican night? I think the grand events are fantastic, and some communities, that is really what they want, or what they want at times. But I do think it's the little things that it's the 1%ers, isn't it, that really just glue a community together.
Nice. Yeah. And I've certainly resonated with that in my own experience, like a little WhatsApp group to connect us, or we go dog walking together, or there's a communal book library box, and everyone just kind of comes to that central hub. And then you just have those automatic little interactions as you go. Last question from me to you. Where does Neighbours Day and all the other kind of community events and initiatives fit in with what you've shared about? Like, what's their importance? What puzzle are they in that puzzle piece?
Well, we're really proud of our partnership with Ending Loneliness Together and Neighbours Day. We think it's just such a beautiful alignment with our ethos. I think, to steal from the Neighbours Day team, it's Neighbours Day every day. But I think that this Sunday is an opportunity for us to really shine a light on the beautiful things that our communities are doing, and we do have across the country events running on Neighbours Day on the 30th. So it's really just that little bit of an intensive moment to share the story, but overall it's really about how we're all building that fabric of community every day, and so we feel like we belong.
Beautiful. Well, I'm happy the jazz hands came out to play. I feel the passion. I feel the desire for like really offering this out to the community. I think that's so nice to hear. And I guess our final, Michelle H, can tell us a bit about that from your own experience as a Frasers Property Australia resident. So Michelle H, if you're open to sharing with us, maybe kind of starting out with what were the challenges you faced in connecting with your neighbours when you first moved in?
Sure. Hi, everybody. When our property build had finished, we were only the third in our street. So there were 41 blocks altogether. So we basically didn't have neighbours. And Frasers Property Australia put on a land settlement party so that when the land settles, we all get together and meet each other. And it was at that event that my husband and I looked at each other and thought we'd made the biggest mistake of our lives. We were not the typical demographic. We're in our late 50s. We're empty nesters. We just thought, we're not going to fit in here. Like, what have we done? Mm-hmm. Along with that, I am an introvert. I find face-to-face contact interaction challenging, and I was coming from a place of extreme loneliness. We'd spent 16 years on acreage. You don't even see your neighbours, and we'd become empty nesters. So I was really struggling, and I had been struggling for some time.
Thanks for sharing that, Michelle H. And I mean, it's a pretty big experience to go through, feeling like there's no one around you, and then when the people are around you, that you feel unable to connect with them. From what I know about you, though, you've been able to build that up over time and start to really work through that. So it would also be really nice to hear what are those steps that you took over time to kind of build out the relationships in your space and in your community.
Sure. It really did start with making a decision to change my reality. We had committed to this build that was going to be our future. If nothing changes, then nothing changes. So I really wanted and needed to build a new reality. So I made myself visible. It was really difficult, but I started with simple things like walking the dog around the neighbourhood. Dogs are great icebreakers. I attended and participated in the events that Frasers had put on that interested us and that we could get to. And I spent a lot of time out the front of our house. I also brainstormed ways to contribute to my new community. I listed what I thought would be of benefit to others or that others might actually be interested in. Were they passionate about the same things that perhaps I was passionate about? And then I took action. So same, nothing changes if nothing changes. So I posted in our community Facebook group run by Frasers. I had items to donate. I invited community members to join me in a project for some very special local aged residents. And I floated an idea to a beautiful family in my street that I hoped would be of benefit. They're just a few of the things that I did.
I mean, as just a small list so far, and I'm sure there's more, that's awesome. Like for someone who felt introverted, isolated, lonely, to then go, nah, it's my responsibility to make this happen, and here's what I'm going to do. Awesome. And I reckon that's going to be really inspiring for people to listen to that might be feeling how you used to feel in your situation. So I guess the final thing I want to pose to you is for the participants that are tuning in here, they might be struggling to find connection. They might be facing challenges. Is there any guidance that you could offer to them from your experience that you think could help them on their journey?
I do. I thought long and hard about this because it's quite a vulnerable position to be in. But I would say, and I have my notes because I'll probably get teary.
That's all right. Tears are welcome.
Thank you. Is to be brave, become visible, be generous with what you have to offer. We all have something to offer. So discover whatever that something is that you have, and know that connections take time, they take effort, and they take persistence. It doesn't happen overnight. And all of it is so worth it because I now feel connected, I feel valued, and most importantly, I'm no longer lonely.
Beautiful. It's so uplifting. Like I could feel hairs on my body standing up when you were sharing it because I haven't heard you express that before. It's my first time listening, and I'm really happy for you being able to do that. And I'm sure the communities around you that are positively impacted are really happy that you've done that as well. It's almost impossible for me to MC this and keep up with the chat, but I couldn't help but notice the chat is just filling up with comments, questions, and just a lot of love being sent your way, Michelle H. So thanks so much for sharing that. And we'll reverse. No, you're good. We'll reverse engineer it and go through the chat in a moment. I guess the kind of area that we want to shift to, as we've now heard from our panel members, is a bit more of that Q&A style. So we might kind of just run through the chat, pick up some questions as we go, and then we'll round things out with just final takeaways from everyone. So just looking through the chat, it's going to take me a moment to get here because there's a lot of love and a lot of queries that have come in. So let's just pick it up from... Just got to go back about 20 minutes, so bear with me a moment. There's a question from Tom Ware, and I'm happy for whichever panel member feels suitable to speak to this to speak to it. Is there any education being carried out on techniques to make friends in the first instance? And then Tom also said, at the time when Michelle L was sharing, Michelle L's making sensory meeting people for making friends But are there certain ways to get a conversation going? Are these being looked into? So any insights you could share on that, Michelle L?
Good questions, Tom. I think there might be some intergenerational differences in the way we actually connect with people. And just actually at the reason why I'm in the Gold Coast, for example, is actually at the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Conference here, where they're talking about how young people actually are so skilled at connecting online, and that is their norm, And so it's around who you're connecting with. I think it's quite a subjective experience, but I think the important thing is that we start small, we start basic, and that simple hello does go a long way, and that opener, and that gives people an insight into how you're feeling and whether you're open for connection, and taking action. I think. Thank you so much for sharing, Michelle Hunter, for your experience. But what I really got from that is that despite feeling so terrible, and actually the tendency to want to withdraw, is to actually approach the problem, approach that issue right face on, and actually taking those small steps. You weren't doing anything huge, but you were taking little steps to kind of reach out and to connect. And through those, that what happens is that you build over time. So there's no quick panacea, but that chipping away and adding to it actually makes a lot of sense to people.
And it feels more accessible and digestible to be able to do that. I think for almost all of us to just like jump right in the deep end and go do something massive is very challenging. And the theme that I heard from all three Michelles was about taking small steps in the right direction. So it might be a little g'day. It could be that you bring their mail to them if it goes to your house and just engage them. It could be you exchange a mobile number. It could be you got some excess veggies and you just leave it out the front of their place with a little letter. Like, there's lots of little ways that we can kind of just spark up connection. And then over time that can solidify and we can really build on it. So thanks, Michelle L. There were also a few great additions in the chat. Patrick shared about Friendship Lab. Erin shared about We Should Get Together, a few different initiatives out there that could help you access a bit of that stuff, Tom. As we keep rolling through the chat, bit of love for the jazz hands that I'm seeing, people being really happy to connect, even virtually. Marion was saying the little act of kindness can also inspire our community. So just those little things that we do that we maybe think other people aren't noticing, they're probably noticing it, and we're actually role modeling that behavior, and then other people might start doing the same thing. Joe, go. Yeah.
Just to Marion's point, actually, there's a lot of research that shows that pro-social behaviors and actions like showing kindness are actually a very non-confrontational way to connect with people. And actually, even if you had higher levels of social anxiety and you're afraid of rejection, when you actually do an act of kindness, that's much more, that fear of rejection drops much more significantly, and that actually helps you connect with someone. So that's actually act of kindness, a simple act of kindness, which I think we all can do, can actually achieve a lot in terms of connection.
Massive. Yeah. It's like just a small selfless act ultimately ends up serving us really well ourselves, and it gets us out of our own way. So I think that's a powerful one. Joe B popped in the chat a question for Michelle M. Would love to hear your approach to designing spaces for intergenerational connection. So often we see old people separated away in aged care facilities that reduces the opportunities to meet people of all ages. Lisha also seconded that. So could you kind of speak about that intergenerational connection?
Yeah, great question. I think that maybe it's back to that sustainable and inclusive design sort of idea where we're looking to prioritise social connection for all ages and abilities, so everyone feels welcome. So in your park spaces, for instance, you might make sure that park benches are a certain height that's a bit more comfortable for someone that is less able to sit down, and also making sure those chairs are near the playground. So and not just for older people, but also we recently did a playground design, and we had some fantastic residents come along who one particular young mum was in a wheelchair, and making sure that the hard spaces near the swing, for instance, was enough for her to be able to manage her child near a playground, but that would also benefit a lot of other people. So I think having that really intentional way of engaging with the end users who are the future residents and getting that broad spectrum, as we know, that good consultation piece just gives us a better product into the future.
Nice. Really, really well spoken to. I guess it's envisioning from an older person's point of view or someone who may lack mobility, if they were in this setting, how could they best engage with it? And it sounds like you're covering that off really well. As I'm scrolling through, there's some lovely offerings, jazz hands, all sorts of stuff in there. Another question from Tom. Has the link between the use of smartphones as a device detracted from making friendships? E.g., there's less casual conversations taking place between strangers on the street, at bus stops and the like. Michelle L., do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I have a really funny answer to that because I just heard this at a conference in the Gold Coast.
Oh, there you go.
Back then, I mean, we were kind of, putting a critical eye on parents, not really being as responsive to children when they kind of need a connection, and that is a valid point. But, one of the psychiatrists actually mentioned, well, back in the day, it would have been a book about Tolstoy, like something, so it's really, we got to be very careful about, quickly villainizing social media use. Back in the day, it could be a book, it could be something else. So I think it's really making sure that we prioritize the way we interact with people and what works for us. With young people, we're encouraging, but when we can't discourage them necessarily from stopping to use their phone, because that's how they're relating to each other. What they're doing is they're finding connection in those devices. But what we can do is to try to share and ask them about their experiences about who they're connecting with online, for example, as opposed to saying, don't do that, because, when you tell young people don't do something, they will do it.
They're going to do it.
They're going to do it. But it's trying to kind of open up opportunities to say, oh, who are you talking to online? Where are they from? Connecting with them through those mediums as well. So we need to think about ways of connecting and making sure we establish good social hygiene that works for us, that maybe is consistent with our generation. I know I come from a generation that's I would still prefer face-to-face, for example, but that's not really the case for people 20, 30 years younger than me.
Yes, I guess it's really just meeting young people where they're at, getting curious about their online experience, and also acknowledging online is a place that they can form connections, but they're also going to need in-person interaction. So it's really just finding that balance.
That's right. It's all about balance, and it's all about making sure that we put different priorities or shift our priorities if needed.
Nice. Thanks, Michelle L. I might throw to just one more question, and then we're going to kind of start to wrap things up. For any questions that haven't been addressed as well, we will get back to you after the webinar. We're just not going to have enough time because the chat's been filled up with so much good stuff. But don't worry, your questions will be answered, even if it's offline post-webinar. Final question from Greg. Many local schools welcome trusted older people into their community. Has Michelle H. and Fraser Group participated in intergenerational programs, but more specific to early childhood, primary school, high school play groups? So is there any of that connection between older and younger folks that have been built in or designed into the space?
I would absolutely...
Or is there scope for that, perhaps?
Great question. My response essentially to that would be it's more in the community programming piece, so linking an aged care home with a childcare space and having those intergenerational play groups, like just nothing better to warm the cockles of the heart. But absolutely, it's really about engaging whatever groups and whatever communities we are working with and looking to see, as you were saying, Nick, meeting people where they're at, what's important to them and how they'd like to engage. So when we're designing community in that software space, as it were, we're really looking to see how they would like to connect in and what we can do to facilitate that and help bring a bit of capacity.
Nice. Yeah, it's a great opportunity to really connect those very different generations with one another and offer benefits both ways. there is so much love in the chat for Michelle H, which is kind of flooding it, and it's almost hard to digest all the other questions and resources and other things that are being popped in, which we can't address now, but we will address going forward in the future. Of course, have a read through yourself because there's some great resources people have popped in. Just with a couple of minutes to go, the final piece I'd really love us to close on is maybe to just hear one super concise, gold standard, absolute best takeaway from each Michelle. And maybe we'll start Michelle L, then M, then H. Just is there one gold standard that will help people foster connection for you?
Well, I think remember that everyone has a responsibility to do something about their connection and to build that connection in their community. So taking little actions and little effort is one way to start. Loneliness is no longer seen as a personal matter. This is a community issue. This is a society issue. We can play our part by taking little steps forward.
Beautiful. Love that, Michelle L. What about you, Michelle M?
Maybe it's if you've been brave and you've started, you've put an idea out to your community, but not everybody turns up. It's okay. Not everything is for everybody, and that's absolutely perfect. It's exactly how it needs to be. So I don't want anyone to feel discouraged. It's just that communities are fabrics, and we need lots of layers and lots of different things to pull it all together. So I really encourage everyone to put themselves out there and really have love for what comes back.
Awesome. Nice. And Michelle H, to bring it home with a bit of lived experience, heart and soul, what would you offer to the participants?
I would suggest being generous with what you have to offer without expectation.
So nice. I'm really happy for us to wrap on that beautiful note, which I think sums up the last 40 minutes perfectly. We could sit around and stay here for hours, but we do need to wrap things as we're on the buzzer beater. So I just want to thank all the participants so much for coming, for participating, contributing in the chat, sharing resources, asking great questions. We've also developed a resource that you can access through the Ending Loneliness Together website, which Marge has popped in there. But yeah, finally, just thank you so much. If you've got more questions, any more comments, follow the links that we've popped in the chat, read along in the chat, and hopefully we'll see you guys next time.